Hello there, my name is Matt Berg and welcome to Luma Class. In today's video, we're going to be doing a quick overview of Final Cut Pro 10 and how to get things set up if you're a first-time user and prepared for using Final Cut Pro 10. It's going to take you to a window that looks similar to this. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the Luma values here, the video scopes. We'll come back to that later. But this should be something similar to what you are seeing on the initial launch. Most of the time, it will automatically create an untitled library, and this is where all of your videos are going to be stored. What I would recommend starting out is to rename this library. And if you're curious where this library is located, if we go into our Finder and in Movies, that is where you will find your library. This library contains all of the files and elements that you will be using to edit footage. That includes any special effects, audio, video, all gets imported to your library. To rename, you can simply click on it and rename it from here. And what you will notice if we go back into our Finder, the library is now named Sample in our Movies folder directory on our computer. The next thing we can adjust is with the sample highlighted. If we go over to the right-hand side of the screen, you should see library properties. If you're not seeing this, you might want to make sure the inspector is enabled. You will then be presented with the library properties. From here, we will see the name of our library. We can also modify where the storage locations are. If you're using an external hard drive, this is where you can then utilize that external drive. If you're not, that's fine, limited to the storage on your computer. Beneath that, you will see two options for consolidation. This can be useful if you are going to be switching computers or switching environments. If you want to take all of your projects and transfer them to an external hard drive, it's always best to consolidate all of your files so that way all of your footage, sound effects, anything that's included with your projects are all consolidated into one library. Basically, it's like putting it into a suitcase and then allowing you to take that suitcase with you so you can transfer that information. This includes all projects, all files included in that library. It will give us a total size here. If we click on Modify, this is going to give us the option that is important to change. If you are working with HDR footage, meaning that you are filming with a color profile, and in my samples and tutorials, we will be using HLG, which stands for Hybrid Log Gamma. It is basically a color profile option on many advanced cameras that gives you the ability to record your footage in HDR. If you do not have color profiles on your camera, I would recommend leaving this set to standard. Now, if we go back to our left-hand side of our pane here, back to our library that I've named Sample, you will see here that there is what's called an event. And an event is basically a folder that contains your project and any other files that are included with that project that you're working on. So typically, you'll create a new event for every new project that you're going to be working on. When you create a new event, you will then have an empty bin that you can import media into. This can be pictures, video, sound effects, anything that you are going to be using for that project. And when we select Import Media, this will take us to a panel where we can then import footage. This can be from an SD card if you're using a SLR, DSLR, or filming camera, digital filming camera. And if you are using a phone, you can also connect your phone via USB to your computer. That should then also show up as a device on your laptop. You can also choose FaceTime HD camera, which allows you to then record footage directly from your webcam. For now, let's go back to our window here. If we right-click on our event, it gives us a list of options here from the subcontext menu. We can create another new event. Now, if you select the checkbox Create New Project, you'll notice that the screen gets a little bit more busy, probably making you scratch your head a little bit. Let's not worry about any of that right now. If we uncheck that, that would allow us to then create a new event inside of our library. And when we select OK, you will see that new event created. Now, by default, Final Cut will create a new event based on today's timestamp. So it will do today's month, day, and year as the event name. You can rename this to whatever you would like. Inside of the event, we can create a project. If we right-click or control-click on our event, we will see an option for New Project. When you click on New Project, you will then be presented with the similar settings that we just saw a moment ago when we were trying to create a new event. Now, in these settings, this is where you would set your video format, your frame rate, your resolution, as well as your rendering codec, color space, audio settings, etc. I'm not going to get into detail with this information yet. That will be for another video. But let's go ahead and just leave this project labeled as untitled. Click OK. What you will notice is that we have what looks like film. This is our new project. And you'll notice at the bottom of the screen is our timeline. This timeline is currently blank and ready to be used. So it's a fresh canvas to get started with adding video. Typically, I like to leave all three of these buttons on. This shows us the browser, the timeline, and the inspector. The browser is located on the left-hand side. The timeline is located at the bottom, and our inspector is located on the right-hand side. I will show methods on using this space to its best ability depending on what you are doing at that point in time in Final Cut Pro. When it comes to creating video, there's a lot of layers, as far as adjusting brightness, contrast, colors, white balancing, and adjusting, fine-tuning all of the settings and features, and we will cover all of that. But for now, we're just covering the interface here. On the top right corner, you will find a share button. This will allow you to share a work in progress with others that might be collaborating with you. In the center of the display here is our preview window, our view window, which shows us the playback of what we are editing. And on the top left corner of our window, it will show us the selected resolution, frame rate, and audio settings that we provided. But moving along, on the top right-hand corner of our preview window here is the scaling or the size of our preview window. It allows you to zoom in. In the furthest of the top right corner of the preview window is a view option. If we open this up, there's a lot of options here, and these might be worth adjusting depending on how much performance your computer has. If you're editing 4K footage and you're using an older computer, you might notice that things are a little bit laggy or just not as smooth when you're editing. What I would recommend is going down to better performance instead of better quality. That can help the processing unit of your computer work a little bit more friendly with the footage. And if that doesn't do it, then you may need to look into creating what's called a proxy. We'll take your 4K footage, convert it down to a lower resolution such as 1080, and it will allow you to then edit your 4K footage at 1080. No worries, when you export your project, you can export it in the 4K full resolution version. There's some overlay options. I would say then the next most important section is the range check. This we will use in future videos. I will show how to use that. Very useful to see where your brightness is and where, if something is really washed out, how you can avoid those situations. In the bottom left-hand corner of the preview window are some more features and functionality. This is going to give us our transform tools that allows us to resize or move and crop and adjust our footage. There's also the magic wand. This is typically a feature that will automatically color correct and enhance your audio. It's not always foolproof, doesn't always work 100%, and to be honest, I really never use that option. And then next to the magic wand here is retiming option. This allows you to speed up or slow down your footage. Beneath here we have our index. If you click on the index, you can create tags or markers, and this allows you to create, if you have chapters or episodes through one timeline. Next to that are some options to grab your footage from your bin. So once we have footage in our bin here, we'll be able to use these buttons to bring that footage from our bin down into the timeline. If we click this little arrow, it gives us a variety of tools that we can use. This will change the way your cursor looks from within the timeline depending on what tool you need to use. Oftentimes I use the blade, trim, and select as the most commonly used tools. In the middle here, this shows the actual time for our timeline, the playhead. Next to that are some audio meters that will show how loud your audio is. Normally, I turn my audio meters on the right-hand side. I enable these, and to do that, on the top, select Window, down to Show in Workspace, and put a check mark next to audio meters. For a winning game of audio, keep your audio balanced at 0 decibels at the loudest point of your footage. So you don't ever want to go above 0 decibels. Basically, your audio will be doing what's called clipping, which can cause distortion in the sound of your video. Towards the somewhat middle right-hand side of our Final Cut Pro window here, we have a variety of options. These are going to change how your mouse or cursor functions on the timeline. So this allows you to live skim through video and audio. The one next to that is for your audio skimming. If you don't want to hear all that jittery, strange noise when you're scanning through footage on your timeline, you can enable or disable that there. There's also the solo option. This allows you to just listen to one specific item in your timeline. Next to that is the snapping option. This allows, as you bring footage, film onto your timeline, it will snap to one another. This can be useful to prevent gaps of black, no film, basically. You always want to avoid those gaps. And snapping can also be useful so that you're not incidentally overlapping as you bring film onto your timeline. And to the right is the change the appearance of the clip. They didn't really give that much of a name besides just a description, but this allows you to change the appearance of the timeline. So we can zoom in and out of the timeline here. We can adjust how large our audio looks in the timeline, and we'll see all this later. To the right of the timeline appearance settings is the effects browser. This allows you to browse through different effects that come by default. They are included with Final Cut, so this can add some special effects and little pizzazz to your footage, as well as the transitions area. This allows you to implement transitions between your cuts, between your film. You can download third-party transitions as well as third-party effects that really gravitate for you or what it is you're looking to convey through your film. And if we go back up to the top left corner here, back to our library browser, on the top corner here, you will see 3 options listed. We have our libraries sidebar. This here provides us our photos, video, and audio sidebar, as well as titles and generators. There are plenty of online resources to download custom titles and generators that can be useful for your projects. And all the way at the top of our display here, you will find 3 more buttons. We have our import button, which takes us to the window that we saw just a little bit ago, here to our import dialog. Next to that is a key. This will show us our keyword editor. This gives us the ability to add keywords into our project. You can grab specific clips and add a keyword or tag them with that specific keyword. This can be an organizational tool if needed. And to the right of that is our background tasks window. This lets you know what the engine is doing. So this will give you an under the hood perspective of what your Final Cut software is currently doing. When you're making edits and changes and refinements and tuning things, you're going to see a lot of stuff working in this dialog here. The faster your computer, the quicker you're going to see those bars moving. If you have an older machine, that's okay. You just got to be a little bit more patient in between transitions and adjustments of effects. It just takes a little bit extra time, but it's always possible, no matter the case. That is it for today's video. I'm going to thank you guys for visiting and checking out Luma class in the first episode. And in the second episode, we'll be going into doing some basic clipping and editing of your first timeline. What we will do is just put together some basic B-roll footage, edit that footage together, show you how to use the blade tool among a plethora of other tools, but we will take simple, easy steps through the entire process together and ensure that you are understanding it through and through. That is the most important part and the entire purpose for Luma class. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now. All right, see how that sounds.